Oh, what a day. What a lovely day.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Arwin, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, it's good to have you all. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Bending of space-time?
That's a concept. Scientific evidence would imply something that's taking place in physical reality. We were talking about physics. No.
What is
What
gravity?
if space-time bending caused something in
Space-time is
physical
a
reality? Would that
fourth-dimensional
prove space-time bending?
pseudo-mathematical geometry, not physics. Second time.
No, I get that, but what if pseudo-geometry actually caused something physical? Would that then legitimize its existence physically?
No. The calculation of anything may be able to quantify the thing that you're calculating, but the numbers on the page aren't the cause of anything. You can describe, you can quantify with numbers. They're not causal.
Yeah, but how do you know until you've actually tried it? I
was in such a good mood till Arwin got here. You listened on the pre-show, how upbeat I am. You listened to my intro. Now listen to me. Get lost, Arwin. You're not going to ruin my mood. No. Physics isn't maths.
Numbers on paper can change reality, damn it.
No. Numbers aren't the cause of things, Arwin. You know it and I do it. Meanwhile, any physics for it? Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well, if you're a ball believer, you want to believe there's a reason that you can exist on the outside of a spinning ball and that's flying through a sky vacuum. So gravity is the way they believe they live on a ball, right?
Okay, but the ball that they've derived, if we're talking gravity and their association with the ball that they want to believe they're standing on the outside of, the way you come to reify into existence that concept mathematically, Arwin, how you can get involved with this, is by taking a flat plane measurement in the first instance and then deriving an R value and then creating a sphere that you can reify as you standing on the outside edge of it. Therefore, there's got to be a connection here, John, between gravity and the flat plane inference that you must have if you're going to reify your existence on the outside edge of it. Where's that connection?
Right, well, maybe you do need a flat plane for pseudo-geometry. Maybe you do.
Well, you'd have to have a phenomenon to tie it to reality, something happening. So
what about
if you can,
some dense objects moving through air towards the ground?
right, that's a way to start. So we're going to have a downward bias that we need to explain, right?
Oh, we're halfway there already.
Do you?
Do you? Well, we can just ignore the other bits, Arwin. Let's ignore the things that go up.
Yeah, but I thought that pseudo-geometry was the whole point, that it's not all just going down, go boom, boom. It's just like, yeah, it goes in all directions, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it's doing anymore.
Yeah, but that's not the...
But something is doing something because of pseudo-Riemannian force space.
Let's just explain to me. The reason we have pseudo-force space is to take this gravity. Now, it's in a new guise in pseudo-force space, but take the gravity that can then be convoluted with the other type of gravity that John and I are discussing, which is something that has a physical quantification. Now, the reason it's still taught to school children is because you have to get them to associate with something in reality physically. Now, it isn't, and the reason it isn't is to take it away from us being able to say there is no physical phenomena when we convolute the idea of things going down in air and ignore the things that don't. But then we've got something that we can turn into, if you're a ball-believing Muppet, a phenomena. So you have to have both. That's why we have both. That's why the former, that's Newtonian gravitational forces, are, and probably will still be until we die, taught in schools to kids. You've got to have a force holding you to the outside of a ball. That's where John started.
Okay, so they need...
Go on.
So they need the outdated gravity they don't use anymore for the phenomenon, for the new gravity that doesn't have one.
No. Not for the new one. The new one is there to take it away from anything having a physical connection to it. It's not to connect it to the physical connection that Newtonian had. Pseudo-force space specifically takes the concept of gravity as a force out of the physical and into the conceptual. That's what its purpose is.
Okay.
And that's also why you won't find Slovers or flat earthers that want to argue Einstein. They want to argue Newtonian or falsely ascribe Newtonian.
Right, because at least something is happening there.
Or it's a more difficult for us to unpick. So when I first encountered QE, his gripe was that whenever he entered a discussion about gravity with a ball-believing Muppet, where does it go quickly? Well, it goes to the out-of-date rhetoric, the 108-year out-of-date Newtonian mass-attracting mass nonsensical garbage backed up by Cavendish. So he has to then try and step in and say, this is not your current rhetoric, so that he can get them to, hopefully, argue about pseudo-force space-time bending, because you can cut that off at the knees in the same way I did with you, Arwin. This is a conceptual, fourth-dimensional pseudo-reality time, which is also a concept in and of itself. Bending. Yeah, it's not happening in physical reality. End of discussion.
Right. So you need the Newtonian force to argue about, right? You need to be arguing about why everything is going down.
But
that's where they need to start.
But how do you bend something that's not physical?
You're doing it now. Listen to what John's saying. You need to start with the three-dimensional force Newtonian. You're saying, well, where do you get space-time bending in that? You don't.
Yeah, this is not convoluted at all. Yeah, it is. Extremely.
Not really. What's...
Gravity. It's convoluted.
Oh, gravity.
As hell.
Sorry. I thought you meant our dissection of it was convoluted. On the
No,
contrary, we
no.
could not been a bit more concise. How dare you? No, you didn't mean that. Okay, fine. You mean gravity is very convoluted? Absolutely. It's got two different meanings for a single word. One is a force that attracts masses. The other is a pseudo-force space time bending. They're both universally used side by side and juxtaposed with one another, flipped between. You know, it's a convoluted gaggle screw. But once you understand what they are, one is 108-year out-of-date mass-attracting mass, according to Newton, backed up by Cavendish. Flying in the face of not all things go down. Not all things are attracted to the mass of a sphere Earth that they say you're held to with this force of gravity that pulls things down, like you, to the surface. No, gases expand in all directions. It defies their claim of a phenomenon in the first instance. There is no phenomena. Nonsense. In terms of the moving of the scale, when they describe G, they have us at 1G. That is to say, they've moved the scale 1. When you're not falling, when you're not doing anything, that should be 0. No, that's 1. Well, what about when I'm falling through the air, hurtling towards my death? Oh, that's 0. Because you're not really falling. You're falling around a sphere, you know what I mean? So that's 0. Nonsense. Just move the scale so that you've got a force of 1 when you're doing nothing.
That's how they want to create the apparent 0G. Right? Because they say, oh no, the displacement, the passive displacement, relative density disequilibrium, that's actually neutral. That's being stopped.
Yeah, till something goes up.
Hyper convoluted.
Still something goes up. You can talk about being in orbital motion, which is what that was describing, falling around a sphere Earth perpetually in a zero-G state. Well, yeah, you're constantly falling according to their gravitational description. That's orbital motion, right? Okay, so we understand what they have as you falling at zero. Makes no bloody sense. Meanwhile,
you still have buoyancy. You still have
well,
buoyancy.
that's where I was about to go. Meanwhile, you have stuff that goes up.
Right, but that's no
Or you
problem
could
for the
go-
ball model. I mean, yeah, it's just the lightest fluid is gonna rise to the top, right? And gonna sit there versus the vacuum of space. And just gonna be pushed at the front of the row with all the gases.
Look, I'm sick of this. I want to get off this back road garbage and get onto Route 90, which is to say,
All right. Then.
go on, John.
Well, the idea of down is a vector. It's a vertical vector. So you need a horizontal plane to derive your vertical vector down.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Did you all hear that? Have you got a pen? Are you in the audience? Paying attention. This is the cutting edge of our argumentation. Thank you, John. So to derive a claim of down in the first instance, you're going to be perpendicular to the horizon or perpendicular to a horizontal plane of reference. Therefore, you're going to need a flat plane for this.
And if you want to go with the eccentricity as it deals with gravity, is a deviation from that horizontal plane of reference. So even to construct the idea of the solar system, you need a flat plane.
Well, the solar system isn't it like a flat disk of balls spinning around each other in a circle?
Yes and no.
Or-
If you're describing any of these motions, they always describe them with respect to the plane of reference that they're getting angles from. Well, when they expand that out into the solar system, they still have the reference of plane. So when they, in the heliocentric garbage nonsense, talk about how, well, obviously all of the planets are all lined up on this one plane, it's all kind of flat. The universe is flat. No, our descriptions of the lights of the sky have been derived from a flat plane that we're standing on. Therefore, when you expand those out into heliocentric motion, having reified your ball from a radius that you've derived from that same flat plane, you have to infer that everything you back reference out in the solar system is also with respect to a plane. That's why they say the universe is flat. No, Earth is flat. And the descriptions of the universe that they pollute your mind with being you on a ball with us flying around the sun have all come from an origination of a flat plane measurement. Therefore, the universe is flat? No, the world's flat.
Yeah, they need a flat plane more than we do.
I've taken that quote and put it back at so many people in comments, John. That is a excellent turn of phrase. Yeah? Route 90's evolved. Yeah? You, that would be you, globe-believing muppet, uneducated in your own rhetoric, need a flat plane more than we do, because you're making claims that are based off measurements taken from it. We're not. So therefore, you need a flat plane more than we do. End quote, refracted curvature, aka John.
Hey, everyone.
Ryan! Ray!
Hey, Brian.
Yeah,
you got 3 panel members.
just on what you just said, Nathan. We're not saying we require it to be flat. We're just saying that it happens to be flat. Like we live with the Earth has a horizontal baseline, basically, is what we're saying. So we don't need it to be, but they need it to be for all the things that they require to have happen for their.
Well, that's not entirely
centric model.
fair.
Hold on. What
I mean, we definitely need the Earth to be flat for the things that we do to work. Wouldn't be no celestial navigation if the Earth wasn't flat.
Yeah, but that's we, as in everybody, including a ball belief that will also have a claim that comes from a measurement taken from the flat plane. Hence John's statement. You, globe believers, in parentheses, need the flat plane more than we do. They're making a lot more claims that are derived from it. It's that simple. Orbits, the most recent, check out that video. Something I've actually managed to cobble together while I was utilising my downtime, let's call it. But they do. They need the flat plane more than we do.
Yeah, we just point out that it happens to be flat. You know, that's what we've ever done. We just pointed out that it isn't a globe. It has a horizontal baseline.
The thing about this, Brian, one of the commenters was trying to force me into justifying what an orbit was or defining. It's like, define orbits. Like, why? Well, you're claiming they prove a flat Earth. No. You have a claim of orbits, and your claim of orbits needs a flat Earth. We point out to you, who has the claim of orbits, definitely not me, I'm not claiming orbits, that the orbits you claim need a flat Earth. I'm not going to be defining anything. I'll point out where your claim needs a flat Earth, and then I'll walk away laughing.
Yeah, because every part of your, like, if you were to actually start detailing orbits, no matter what they want to believe is happening, you're going to be starting with a flat plane because you have to create an angle because an orbit is an angle.
Yeah, so get used to it, fundies in the audience who still believe the globe is real. Every time you reference it, we're going to be pointing out where there's a flat plane being utilised along the way. And it will be pretty much straight away. But you'll have always sidestepped it or had it handed to you with an angle already measured from it or something along those lines so that you don't realise you've already utilised a flat plane. Classic example, MC Toon. How do you get these only capable of being measured off a flat plane angles to work on a flat plane? What, the angles that came from a flat plane were measured on a flat plane couldn't be measured on a globe? Those angles, how do they work on a flat plane? Same way you measured them. But he doesn't tell his audience that the angles he's asking us to define how they will work on a flat plane were measured on a flat plane. Just doesn't mention it. We mentioned it. I've mentioned it to it 87 times. Having a tune. You listening? Yeah, you'll need a flat plane for those angles in your challenge.
That's why when he was pushing the challenge originally, like there was about 3 weeks of him pushing this challenge, and every baller everywhere in everyone's chat and everyone's comment section was asking, "Are you going to take up the tune challenge?" Right? No, not. I don't mean just me. Asking everyone. Right? We all got it anywhere we went. And I asked Toon, I said to Toon, one night, I said, why don't you just take your challenge and prove the globe with it? And he suddenly went complete radio silence and he shut up about it. Because he knows that when it comes to the point of measuring that angle, he knows he can't assert anything but a horizontal plane. He knows this. So consequently, he just shut up about it. And suddenly the whole why don't you do Toon's challenge and prove it's flat? Right, that whole thing suddenly just died down.
Why don't
because
you
he can't? If he could prove the globe with it, if that was something he could prove the globe with it, he would have done it. Why is he not doing that?
These people are frauds and charlatans, con artists. So Toon is just a fraud. How does this work on a flat plane with the angles that were measured only on a flat plane? Could only work on a measured flat plane. That's how you got the angles. That's the rebuttal. That's the end of the challenge. Where's the 10 grand? Fraud, charlatan, conman, MC Toon didn't pay anybody, just shut up about it. When it was shown to be only capable on a flat plane, did he pay anybody? No, because they're con men. He's only seeking pain relief, dangling 10 grand. He's a liar. He's not going to pay anybody a dime. We knew that the moment he came out with the challenge. We've seen it all before.
Well, do you know what I've actually experienced? This is not me exaggerating. This is truth. That Proto, who's friends with MacToon, Proto brought out a video there about, I don't know, a year ago maybe or less, where he takes a plastic blow-up globe, right? Now that's like a blow-up ball you'd have on the ocean, right? For kids and stuff thrown around the place. A plastic blow-up ball, globe, right? And he started drawing circles on it, circles that he was calling circles of equal altitude. Right? When they
Equal altitude? On a globe? Au contraire.
Yeah. See, well, they're not a circle on a globe. They're what's known as a spherical cap. They're only a circle when you take that cap off. You could then call them a circle because they're flat. Then it's like slicing off a part of an orange, etc. But the point is that I have, and this is no joke, I've had bowlers who I know have some education simply because of their maths level and different things that I've experienced with them. Literally tell me that on boats like yachts and all these things, they bring a plastic globe with them and they draw circles on it. That's what I've had them. Yes.
These people are
They
insane.
bring out a plastic globe with them and they draw circles on the globe, and that's how they find their way around.
Yeah,
I said no, they use maps.
Yeah, cut to the guy with a flat map table charting stuff out. Yeah, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah, there's a particular table, a big table, and it's on most, especially a boat of any size will have a big table. The whole point of it is so you can lay out a map.
No, I don't know about that. I'm pretty sure I've seen in some of those map rooms, they've got like what looks at first glance to be like a giant exercise ball. They just wrap it around that, don't they?
Yeah, because you know what I mean? That's what these people actually believe. So they actually will argue and fight for people on boats bringing out a blow-up globe. I mean, a blow-up globe, that's what they think. I don't know what else to say. That's what
just made it
I've
up.
had them argue that.
It's the art of making up whatever convoluted nonsense makes you believe your own delusions when it comes to this cognitive dissonance. No, they don't use flat maps. And even if they knew that they did, they'd be like, well, if they're using a Gall Peters or they're using a Mercator, well, they're globe projections. Okay, yeah, they are. And those globe projections have come from a tube projection that's been taken from the equatorial plane. So the whole process started with flat Earth angles to the celestial sphere, to then process it out into a tube, onto a globe, and then back out onto a flat map, called the Mercator. But because one of the in-between stages from measuring angles to the stars off a flat plane to getting it onto a map that has circles represented as a straight grid, has a globe in between, therefore Earth's a sphere. That's what they think. Oh, it's a globe projection.
But see, what they actually do is it starts with flat, because that's how the globe had to back engineer from flat. So it starts with flat. They back engineer a globe from it. Then they turn the globe into a cylinder map, which is the universal transverse Mercator. And then they use the Haversine formula to turn that back into a globe. And that's it. Well, that's what they do. And all the maps they use. Sorry, go on, John.
What formula do they use to turn it into a globe, though?
The Haversine formula. Do you hear me? The Haversine. But when on a ship, you don't have a world map that you're laying out all the time. That's not what you do. You're laying out sectional maps. That's what you're laying out.
The first distortion. What formula did they use to distort it?
Well, they didn't. They start with flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris, which creates the latitude and longitude grid. Then they back engineer that into a globe. Then they turn that globe into a cylinder map by using all the latitude and longitude lines, turning them into XY lines on a cylinder map. And then they use the Haversine formula to turn that cylinder map back into a globe.
Okay, yeah. What formula are they using to turn the flat map into a globe? The first time they do it. So they just use the Haversine twice?
No, they don't. No, they don't use the Haversine only one time. No, it starts with flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. That's what creates the latitude and longitude grid. They then back engineer the latitude and longitude grid by treating all the corresponding longitude lines as bringing them together at their south ends to create a circle. So they create 24 circles basically, all interlocking. And what happens is all the longitude lines, circles of longitude, anything past the equator then gets smaller and starts matching anything north of the equator. And then they turn that globe into a cylinder map, and then they use the Haversine formula to turn it back into a globe. So it's only used one time.
So they don't use any math to transform it the first time.
Well, maybe I don't. Maybe I know what you're saying, to go to the cylinder map, but basically all they're doing is laying out the globe in a cylinder. That's basically all they're doing.
No, that's not the point he's talking about. He's talking about if you take a measurement at Polaris, so it's directly at your zenith, and then you move back, what would it be, 69 miles, right? Or 60 nautical miles, yeah? And then you draw a circle around Polaris, right? That represents your first flat plane. Now, given that they know the extremity, they already know what the equator will give them, i.e. they know how to lay out the radial value at the absolute extreme. All you're then going to do is map out all of those points per degree as flat plane slices that go down towards the equatorial plane, getting larger as you go away from Polaris. So what you actually end up with is not a globe. It's stacked up flat planes that are getting bigger as they go down towards the equator. That's what you actually have from the measurements that they take off flat plane to Polaris. That's what you'd end up with. That is what is the first step of conversion. You're saying, well, what's the maths for doing that? I don't know how what I've just described would be put into mathematics, but that's what's actually occurred.
No, to turn the flat into the globe is not that difficult. They just all they're doing is the south ends of the longitude lines are just being more brought in to meet in the middle. All they're doing is creating a circle out of it. Because remember that the presentation I did, Nathan, on your channel one night, the great circle hijacking. That's what they're doing.
Yes.
They're turning the corresponding longitude lines into circles, and that's how they start their globe. That's where they get their radius from, because they then will have a 3,440 statuette mile radius, right, length, when they turn that into a circle, and that converted into nautical mile radius. Then they convert that into a statuette mile radius of 3959 or 3958, something like that. But that's where they get their statuette mile radius, and that's where it all starts from. So they don't need, the only formula they'll be using there is pi. It's only after that they need to use other formulas. But at that portion, the maths is not hard.
Right, but the initial distortion into a cylinder or whatever would require them to have a mathematical formula for doing it. I just
but
if you
the only one they need is pi.
Formula was.
We don't know.
Well, no, they don't. They don't need it. That's the simplicity of it. They don't need much to turn it from a flat plane into a globe. They just need to turn the latitude and longitude grid into a globe, and then place all the land masses inside that. That, like, there would be a little bit of cartography messing around, but that wouldn't be the most difficult part. The most difficult part would be turning it from a cylinder map back to a globe, to use it that way, using great circles and oxymoron spherical triangles as they need them within the great circles. But it is that part is a bit trickier. But turning it from flat to globe, that's easy. All you have to do is turn the latitude and longitude grid into a sphere.
Which is
right,
just like, and all that is as I just described it, it's just ever increasing circles as you back away from Polaris. And they'll just draw out, as I described it, like pancakes getting bigger as they go down towards the equator. All flat planes, because that's what you're measuring. Well, it's like, you know, you get those.
Give you a cylinder.
Yeah,
that won't give you
that
won't give you a cylinder.
cylinder.
It's more akin to when you buy one of those cheap lamps that are made out of paper and they're concentric circles, ever decreasing circles towards the center, and then you grab the center of it and pull it, and it becomes a sphere. Well, that's what you've laid out. If you've got that laid flat, that lamp shade made of paper with all the circles that are going to hold it together, well, they're all getting smaller and smaller and smaller towards the top. That's what you'd have laid flat if you measured from Polaris and backed out to the equator. That's what they've laid out. And then what you're saying is, when I metaphorically describe grabbing that lamp and pulling it so that it becomes sphere-shaped, what's the formula to do that? That's what you're asking, isn't it?
No, no, no. The part where it goes from flat Earth angle measurements to the stars to the distortion onto a that can be put onto a cylinder.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what you've got,
it can't be randomly done. You can't just say distorted.
No,
there has to be a method to distorting it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Though this is what I'm trying to point out. Well, are you talking about within celestial navigation there, or are you talking about how they began with this, John?
he's talking about how you go from what will eventually be wrapped out from that sphere onto being a Mercator. So you've got a sphere you've got a cylinder wrapped around a sphere, John. And on the cylinder, in the inside of the cylinder, you've got the same rings, but they're now all equal because they're running down a cylinder, right? So essentially, you've got a grid inside a cylinder mapped out. That will eventually become the grid that's laid out flat for the Mercator. And those points that match the circles on the sphere that's been pulled up like a lamp, then plot out onto the points on the inside of that cylinder. I've seen on a Rob Durham video an actual cartoon of this being done, i.e. the sphere inside the cylinder with all the grid lines equal going down the cylinder, and that represents the latitude and longitude lines, and then the latitude and longitude lines that you've got from the sphere that you've mapped out from your angles to Polaris get literally plotted out onto the cylinder from the ball, and then that gets rolled out to become the Mercator projection.
Right. You keep saying the steps, but I'm asking about the steps themselves.
Yeah, but Sean, are you asking?
Just let him ask. Hold on, Brian. Go ahead, John.
Let me ask Sean a question, because I think I know what he's talking about. Are you talking about when they put the circles of equal altitude onto the Mercator map?
No. The actual Mercator. You're talking about taking these angles taken from a flat plane, distorting them into a cylinder. There has to be a mathematical formula for that. You can't just do it willy-nilly, or everyone would have different maps.
You do.
See what they're but see, this is the trick, right? This is the trick. What they're doing is when they take that angle, let's just say take an angle to the star, let's say a 40-degree angle, that'll leave them with 50 degrees, right? So what happens then, right, as opposed to that 50 degrees creating a radius line, right, which is would do in reality. What they do is they take that and they treat it as the radius will be the distance from the center of whatever latitude or whatever they're at. Not center of the latitude, but they're going to use it as a spherical cap. And when they place the circles onto the universal transverse Mercator, they're treating them as smaller circles than they actually measured. Because they're treating them as 3 circles you would circle on a globe. Now, I understand what you're asking about the universe. That's the only way I could think of that they could do it. I know what you're asking.
Well, I ain't asking you how you would do it. I'm asking you how they do it.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the point I'm making. I've thought about this myself. How do they place these 3 big circles? Because they would be bigger than what they would use if they were using a globe. How do they place them on the universal transverse Mercator? And that's a very interesting question.
How did they get the universal transverse Mercator to begin with?
Yeah, but that's easy. That's easy to do.
Right. So you said it's a cylinder. You just distort it onto a cylinder.
No,
how do you do that?
The cylinder, when you place the circles of equal altitude onto the cylinder map, they're distorted. They get distorted onto the cylinder map, and then they undistort them what they do then is they turn that cylinder back into a globe. Because that's what I'm saying. They place them onto the universal transverse Mercator map in such a way where they're not matching what they measured. And they then turn that into a globe. That's basically turning it back into a globe for them. If you understand what I mean.
So there is absolutely no purpose in going to a cylinder.
Well, it allows them to have a flat map of a globe. That's the whole point of using the transverse Mercator. It allows them to treat.
But it's not. That's not. It's you're literally just taking your measurements and saying, "No, that's not it. Let me just draw something on this cylinder."
That's right.
But
That's why.
that's
Yes,
it.
that's why the Mercator is so distorted.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I don't think it works that way.
It does.
That's what y'all are
It's
telling
all
me, but
messed
it
up.
I don't think it works.
It is.
that way.
That's exactly how it works. All of the sizes of everything is completely wrong.
I don't doubt that they're wrong, but they would have to have some kind of methodology for doing it, to getting it to that.
Okay,
That's what I was talking about a minute ago. But
let's just throw it out. If anybody's in the audience and knows the methodology from taking flat Earth elevation angle measurements to Polaris, hard to say with the cold, and turning that into a sphere to put on a cylinder, then there's got to be a mathematical process involved that we, Brian and I, simply do not know to answer John's question, because it hasn't given him a satisfactory answer in the 6 occasions we've gone around this so far.
Yeah, but what I said earlier is the only way they could do it is that they're treating, when they take an angle, that angle, when they, let's say I take an angle and it's 40 degrees to a celestial body above my horizon, I then place that angle at the, in my you're then mathematically placing it at the center of the globe. You're measuring an arc length. And then that arc length distance from the center, let's say, there you know the equatorial plane you'll use, where there's going to be a vertical or a line from the middle of that up through your globe, and where the arc length stopped, the amount you measured stopped, you will take that as your radius between that point and that straight line that's going up through the center. You will take that as your radius. So your radius won't be the length you measured. You know what I mean? Because
so at no point is it a cylinder in your description thus far.
Yeah, but if they're going to place the circles onto the universal transverse Mercator, then they're going to have to make the circles smaller because they're then trying to treat the Earth as a globe. And that's what I'm talking about, how they're doing.
You've moved past the question again. How did they get the transverse Mercator to begin with? You said unwrap it from a cylinder to get the transverse Mercator. It's like it's not. The transverse
Mercator is the cylinder.
I'm done.
Get in on this.
Yeah.
Oh, then Roto, on John and Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, and good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, this is very interesting the way the mapping, because there's so much convolution in how it's been distorted. But let's start from the beginning, if we can, and just agree that the Earth is either one shape or the other. It's either a plane or it's a sphere. So that's a given, right? I mean, those are the only
that's
two
not given.
available choices.
Stop, Roto. Stop. It's not given. That's a false dichotomy.
Okay, I'm just saying that there's two choices that we're given.
That's a false dichotomy.
Mapping,
not a choice.
Well, just to say,
because you're talking about angle measurements, you can't get that off
but hold
sphere.
on. Right, but so the way that